Welcome all of you. My name is Sulekha Chandra, founder of Gyan Paradise, and it gives me immense pleasure and honor to welcome speakers from India and US. I would like to introduce Dr. Ashis Sen. He is the founder of Ashis Sen Consulting and Coaching, chairman of Forum of Emotional Intelligence Learning India, former corporate head L&D at Larsen & Toubro, and GM head capability building at HPCL. He is a visiting professor at IIM Kashipur and has several books to his credit, latest being The Fueling Success. Welcome, Dr. Sen.
Thank you so much for your generous introduction.
Thank you so much. Now I would like to introduce Dr. Shamira. Dr. Shamira is definitely the author of several books on emotional intelligence. She is the associate professor at City University of New York in business management. And welcome, Dr. Shamira. We look forward to your research papers. You have been credited with the best research papers in India and abroad. We would definitely like to have a look at that as well. But it gives me again the pleasure to introduce Ms. Anuradha. She is the founder of Minds Infinity Center, psychologist and psychotherapist, and emotional intelligence coach, and a cyber psychology expert. Welcome, Anuradha.
Thank you so much, Sulekha ji. Thank you, Ms. Sulekha.
And I would request Ms. Anuradha to welcome and introduce our guests from other parts of the world. Please, Anuradha ji.
Thank you, Ms. Sulekha. So, it's an honor to introduce Mr. Peter Mayer. He is a business management instructor at the Borough of Manhattan Community College. He's a former industry practitioner in supply chain functions for several organizations, including aerospace, biotechnology, and chemicals. He's a lifetime certified purchasing manager, corporate Lean Six Sigma trainer, and a leadership coach. He has several publications and research papers to his credit, and his leadership efforts related to environmental and social impacts have been highly appreciated. A very warm welcome, Mr. Peter. Looking forward for a fruitful interaction with you.
Thank you.
Welcome, Mr.
And
Peter.
now,
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me here.
and now I welcome Ms. Sahana Sen. Thank you. Now I welcome Ms. Sahana Sen. She's an assistant professor and business management department in Borough of Manhattan Community College. She has an expertise in markets. She has several publications and research papers, including research and examination into negative consumer reviews on the web to her credit. A very warm welcome, Ms. Sahana Sen.
Thank you.
Welcome, Dr. Sahana.
Thank you.
And last but not the least, I would like to introduce my co-host, Sulekha. Sulekha is founder of Gyan Paradise. She's an award-winning entrepreneur, emotional intelligence coach, corporate trainer, research scholar, and co-author and a speaker. It's an honor to be with you all today. Welcome you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Anuradha. It's really an honor to be among such an elite audience. Well, let us start this session, and we would like to have your views, and let us first ask Mr. Peter. Mr. Peter, what are the new opportunities and challenges associated with working from home these days? Can we have your views about it, please?
Sure. Thank you for having me here. I appreciate it. You know, it's an interesting question in this new work from home, remote world that we live in. And yet we seem to realize that you know, 100 years ago, everybody was distant. 200 years ago, everybody was distant, right? And today, technology has brought everybody together in a very different way, and it's a fascinating way. But there are two areas that I think we need to focus on. And in a way, we don't focus on them in a proper way. We need to start thinking about people in a far different way. We need to ask people who are working remotely first, do they have the grit and the fortitude to work remotely? Do they have the grit? What I mean by this is do they have it within themselves when so many people are used to working together in groups, essentially in person. And now we've moved to this remote environment. The second thing we need to think about is the idea that as leaders, we need to think about resilience. In other words, what can we do to get people who are not participating and not actively engaging in the process? What can we do to get them to be resilient, to pick themselves up, and to move forward and get into this remote world that we have now? So I think those are the two questions that I'd like to focus around. The grit and the fortitude of participants, as well as the resilience of the participants. Are they resilient, and what do we need to do to get them to pick themselves up and get into working remotely? It's not easy for everybody. Some people have a lot of difficulties with it. So that would be my area of where I'd like to start.
Amazing. So great. Thank you so much. Well said that the technology has brought us together and that you would like to focus on the fortitude of people, the participants. And because now everybody is working remotely, it requires grit and determination, and we require resilient leaders who can pull up other people to participate and engage. Engagement is definitely a challenge when we look at the current scenario.
Yes.
Awesome. Dr. Ashis Sen, you would like to add to this view?
I think he spoke very, very well. Now, taking a cue from that, when I talk to people who are working from home, and probably hundreds and hundreds of them, there are some advantages they talk of. One is they're not losing time traveling to office. They actually find that part very, very good. The second part they find good is they're able to spend time at home with their family much more. So that's another positive that many of them see. The third part is they can pace themselves out. They are not looking at 8 hours today. They're looking at what time do we need to complete this particular schedule of work, so they can pace themselves a little. Now, some of the challenges we know from that organizations, one of the basic needs that organizations meet in their employees is their ability to bond with each other, have bond harmony. And because of this isolated nature of working, that fervor, that energy is missing. People, if they have a bad day, off day, there is nobody to console them. They have to fend for themselves. That's probably let down because of this pandemic. Second, when I was talking to some of these leading organizations, even in the IT sector, they had work from home, but never this magnitude or percentage of people ever worked from home. They had virtual teams, but the teams which were virtually connecting still connected from their offices most of the time. They didn't connect from home. So what are the challenges they faced? They say that when we are working in the office and you could talk to manufacturing units, you could talk to service units, they say If we have an issue, we go to the other room, talk to our colleague, and we sort it out, we understand. Now we have to have either long conversations, it's difficult to explain, or write notes, both of which take time and are not so enjoyable. Right? Over a cup of coffee, many of the conflicts get resolved. This is more difficult. One. Second, that they find challenging is that the thin line, which was already thin between work and life balance, has become thinner. It has blurred. So they can expect a call at 9 o'clock in the evening from their colleague and their boss as if it does not matter. To them, it does matter. And this is a big challenge. This is a big challenge. In India, at least we know that they're getting calls at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the night, and the boss feels, peers feel, you are at home, now do it, na. Now that's something they really don't like. So that's another challenge that they're facing, which they can do nothing about. But we need to see what are the protocols that will arise out of this pandemic, because if this goes on for long, and a lot of things are changing. For example, working from home will not be an isolated event, but will not be unique during this period. We think it will become more and more acceptable and more regular, even when this problem blows away. So there are some protocols, there are some rules of the game that needs to be set and will be set. What they are would, I think, emanate from discussions that we have, like the discussions that we have today. And that is something I thought is good reason to ponder upon. Thank you. But again, Peter, thanks. Wonderful thoughts from you, insights from you.
Excellent, sir. Excellent. Yeah,
So
Ms.
now
Anuradha, you'd like to ask something?
Yeah, definitely. So now that we have been talking about the technology and the virtual teams and work-life balance and everything, I would like to ask Ms. Sahana, how do you visualize artificial intelligence, changing learning systems in future?
Well, I am not an artificial intelligence expert, but actually I hear a lot about this because I live with one. My husband is in the area of AI. And well, one of the things, the learning systems that I've heard, way before pandemic, is that the learning systems online can adapt to the levels of your knowledge. So depending on how you are doing in the class, in the course, the material will be tailored to you. In fact, my daughter, who is preparing for her GRE exams, she says that, Mom, if I do well, then they give me harder questions. So it is a matter of, creating content that is customized to the learner, which I think, is an advantage, while you can scale it over so many more people. Professors, of course, bring that person to, in-person understanding of how one student may need more challenging or more help, that can't scale it. We currently have our classes capped at 25 online, and there is some talk about it increasing, and people are trying to stop that from happening, because it's impossible to give a very customized and closely sort of, yeah. So that's what I think, off the top of my head, that's what I would say. The artificial intelligence is definitely moving in this area. They've, like, for the last maybe 10 years, they've talked about disruption of the education sector, and you saw that it took the pandemic to become, this becoming like a thing which everybody is using now. And they have used it not just from the student side, but professors who never expected to be online are online now. And I teach marketing research, and my students do different assignments. So I was grading one assignment, and it was about BMCC students, a survey of BMCC students about how they feel about online versus in-person learning. And I was quite surprised to see the responses, though the sample is not very big. The responses varied from, like, it wasn't like they are extremely upset about not having in-person classes. It was a very mature response. They saw good in it. They saw some things that were not so good. So many of the people who will not join next semester, I think we still need to look more at the data, were saying that it is, they want the in-person experience, while many others said that they thought the quality of education online was at par with what they were getting in person, as they are saving more time, as Ashis Sen, you said, that there are advantages. You're saving time in commuting and spending, time adjusting it with your professors. We always adjust our work. If we have things to do, we'll do it. We find our time. It's not a 9-to-5 job. It's really almost 12 to 15-hour job that we do. So I hope this is some insight to you for.
That's a very well said, Sahana Sen. Yeah, I totally agree with whatever you said. It's like, I would like to put it in a way that every change has its pros and cons, and it all depends on how do we handle it, and how do we give it to the next generation. So the change that we are looking at does has its pros and cons. So Ms. Malekar, would you like to say something about it?
I just wanted to add before we go, I think what Peter's points about grit and about resilience, these are really important things. And I always wonder how to build that in our students, because I sometimes feel we talk a lot about, being caring, and that is very important. But how do we build the grit? That is a question that I don't hear much. I would like to get some inputs on that. I feel like examples from other students help, because if you have groups and then you have members in that group who are exemplars of good work ethics and so on, that helps a lot. And then maybe in class showing their work and sort of getting everybody else enthusiastic about it. Something I feel like may help, but I would definitely like to build more of the that you could, give your students for the future, for everything that they will encounter in their lives. So I have to leave now, and
All right, Ms. Sahana.
All right. Thank you so much for
Thank you so much for being with us and sharing your precious time and insights with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Shamira.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sen.
I think Dr. Sen had a very interesting reflection on this. And perhaps my questions go back to, how do we get students and how do we get participation harmoniously working together? We have this broad spectrum of students. Some of them love the online world. They absolutely love it. And others are struggling. And we have to figure out a way to provide them with an avenue to their own resilience so that they can come back and do things in a way that they would like to do them. It's a fascinating question, and I've looked back at some of the research that's done, and there's no clear-cut answer other than the idea that we as leaders have to figure out what to do and how to coach students to come back. Come back. It's okay. It's okay to fall every once in a while. We want them to get back up, and we want them to come in and always welcome them back. And I think that's the important part, is not making them feel like they must leave a class if they're not doing well, but making them feel that they should come back because this is about learning. The grade is the end result. The learning is what we need to do. And I think that's the resilient part that we need to figure out using technology. And it's a vast, important question, I feel.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Really very well put, Professor Peter Mayer. I mean, typically, if we look at AI, it's now become game changing, and it helps a lot in the learning arena. So, for
Yes.
example, AI-based grading could relieve teachers, right, from many occupational burden. Essays grading software is in the market, and it's still in the early stage. But it can improve the quality for sure. And then with full maturity, the teacher trainer role will change as educators, from grading duties to then more focus on qualitative work like student interaction and in-class activities and personal development. You see many of our partners, publishers, Cengage and Pearson's, Wiley, McGraw-Hill, they have these digital platforms where they have these prompts, which are manual prompts and auto-graded prompts. So AI, artificial intelligence, surely helps in creating those kind of things which are beneficial for students. Next thing, I would think that apart from grading, even creating AI-based digital tutors, so it is worked and found out that recruits who have digital tutor, they outperform Navy experts, right, with 7 to 10 years experience in both written tests of knowledge and real world problem solving. So, I mean, typically it is clear that AI-based digital tutor could be a big role, right, in technical disciplines for sure.
Very good.
Another role of AI could be in personalized tests and quizzes and assessments. So that could be the question and answer format, which can be another benefit of artificial intelligence, wherein they can be designing adaptive assessments and the tests which can just go beyond the question and answer format. Right? They could be assessing individual ability, progression, and then also maybe need to tailor the tests and consequent course content to suit the individual learner's needs. That is also with AI. AI can also look at style-centered learning, as they call it, irrespective of preferred learning styles. If they fall below the radar, AI has a future role in facilitating style-centered learning for sure. Another and last point for AI is looking at creating digital content, creating an environment for great trial and error learning. A lot of looking at available to the masses, creating judgment-free learning environments, all which is run by a non-judgmental artificial intelligence, right? that could be another way in which it can be available. So AI-driven authoring tools, which are now there, the content technology is a very big thing in that, which can create content from information from the relevant books. So actually this in practice, this AI can do a lot of heavy lifting element for sure, right? In for us as learning and development instructional designers, and then we can focus more time on delivery and maybe producing more engaging content, because learning and development surely will create a lot of accessibility. Everything will be more accessible, easily available, and also we can create more socially responsible areas. So with that said, it's like the app which is by Microsoft, the Seeing AI app, is just a glimpse of what is yet to come. This app we may be knowing, right? It enables partially sighted to use their phone as the third eye. It can give the visual descriptions of anything the camera is pointed at. Maybe it's a friend, maybe it is emotional state of people, maybe a sign. So that is something which a Microsoft Seeing app has done. Last point
Wonderful.
I would like to add is about the memory upgrade. This is the best for the last kind of a thing, where the challenges where learners and trainers are looking at knowledge retention. And with AI, it could lead to a lot of these machine learning algorithms which are able to decode and enhance human memory. So these are some of my takes on how AI can be a real boon and blessing for educators.
I think that's brilliant.
Incredible.
In fact,
Incredible.
yeah, I would just like to add something with your permission, Sulekha ji. If it is okay, I just thought I will add a few things as a professor, and where I teach, I see that the medium has changed. So, for example, you have virtual learning, online, synchronous, asynchronous, instead of classroom learning, the traditional one. But the mode has not changed. We're still instructor-led. And actually today we need to understand that a student sitting in a small town may wish to have a course which is certified, and he gets awarded some sort of credits for the course that he undertakes from MIT or Harvard, an online one.
Yes.
Now, that's about choice of institutions. Do I have choice of institutions? I may want to do one from Harvard, one from Stanford, one from IIM, and one from the local school in my city. Do I have that kind of choice? And if we are still looking at that 100 years old system where you went to a school and you studied there, then that's not on. Then the medium has not grown enough, because I need multiplicity of educational institutes. Third, we are also talking of something like, a curriculum that is designed by the student rather than by the institution. For example, I may like to have a mix of biology, engineering subjects, and geography and some social sciences. Whereas typically what I get is a package that's there. That this is the package. You want to take science, you have these subjects. If you want to take this, you have those subjects. Right from school curriculum to college curriculum, the curriculums and the combinations of those curriculums are designed by the college. We have some flexibility for students, but how much? Very limited. And the more we understand that this, if it is to be learner driven, then the choice must lie in the hands of the user, the learner. So I think this is a broader question. How can technology help education become more relevant? We see that children learn from games in a computer, and they learn so well. How do you make them autotelic? That means they give joy by themselves when they learn. Some amount of talk has been there on artificial intelligence, how it is graded in terms of your capability as of now. to see that you learn more difficult things if you are already on to a certain higher level. That's good. How does it become more interesting? And one of the things that is so well structured into the present day curriculum is social learning, that students learn from each other. With that missing, primarily a lot of it is missing. They're not spending 8 hours in school together. They're spending 8 hours on the screen together. How do we bring them to interact in a more meaningful manner? Right. So the part of that, the part that is associated, apart from cognitive learning, a deeper cognitive learning would need reflection. So how do we put into the process reflection and collective reflection is something that I would think is important. And these are not easy things, probably as far as I understand, but these are important things. So that's my take.
Amazing, sir, amazing. And as far as you said, having the choice of curriculum, it just reminded me of a case. There's a student, he was from Mumbai, and he didn't have any formal degree or something. But then he was so techie that he used to answer everyone at some or the other platform, technical questions and technical answers. Somehow Google noticed him, and he was hired.
Wonderful.
So here, this example shows that definitely there is no dearth of people who are going to hire you, even if you don't have a formal degree. But yes, as far as having this institutionalized idea, it is yet to come, because we are definitely still attached to the package that comes than with the subjects of our interest. Usually when we say medical and non-medical, I will like to study biology, but it has to be with the medical, so I don't get to learn it. So that is definitely something we look forward as a change in educational system. Mr. Peter, you would like to add to this?
No, I think it's a remarkable, and I think Dr. Sen, you've actually hit some very important points about this whole concept of resilience and bringing people back, and the gaps that need to be filled. The items that you mentioned are critical in learning, and that's getting people together, to work together, not necessarily from our own curriculum that we give them, but so that they can discuss the things that we are trying to teach to them together, and allow them to have their inputs and their views and develop their individuality. And I think that I commend you on that point. It's a wonderful point that you've raised. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. So
Mr. Peter's words about how we can get students become resilient. I would like to share an example here. There is a group at Mass Communications College. I was going there as a senior faculty. And what I witnessed is when they started virtual meetings, they started, asking students to participate in sharing what they are going through. It was very difficult for them initially. But how they encouraged is by first letting faculty share their experiences, any hard situations in life. And it was completely different from the curriculum.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with the studies.
That's right.
And amazing thing that we could witness was that there was this one guy who came up and he felt encouraged to discuss that he has a bipolar disorder and he has been facing this challenge that he could not make friends. He depends only on his family members or very close relations for confiding his views or his experiences. But that one day when he shared with other friends, amazing reactions started coming up. Other friends of his class who knew him, they started sharing, okay, this is why you were behaving that day like this. Okay, this is what happened that day and you said this. So he responded to them, very casually, and he said, yes, this was the reason. Sometimes I get very angry, but I really don't mean it. I really want you to be my friends. I really want you to be with me. It was a sentimental moment to watch, but they bonded so well. And I witnessed same thing in several other forums of mindfulness. People come and they're encouraged to talk about what they're going through by having certain people already who are there to share what they have gone through. So this creates a lot of bonding, and there have been hundreds of people who have shared on these online platforms, and it's amazing to know that those 100 people know each other well. They connect each other, or individually through personal messages. And I have been a part of such forums, and Dr. Ashis Sen is also running some 3 to 4 forums where we do share on one-to-one basis what we are going through, what we think about this particular issue and stuff. Thank you so much, sir. I hope that added value.
No, that was wonderful,
immense.
Dr. Chandra. That was wonderful. A great example. I have students this semester who all chimed in at the beginning of the class, and they all wanted to start WhatsApp groups. And of course, the first thing you think about as a professor is, they all want to get together to cheat. But this isn't the case. They're looking to communicate. They're looking how to get together, to work together. And maybe we need to enable that for each class. Maybe we need to come together to create an area where they can all meet up as individuals using technology outside of the classroom space, but where it's safe and where it's regulated and where people can't pick on one another and they have empathy. I don't know about all the different platforms that are used. Of course, the students love WhatsApp and they love all these things, but maybe we need to create more spaces online for them to be able to meet in person on camera or through texting or however it is that we can get them together, and just make sure that if there's a question, they have somebody they can turn to come to get an answer. That's all. So I appreciate it. You had a wonderful answer about how this is happening in your classrooms.
Thank you so much. And one more thing I would like to add is, like when we see Zoom or other platforms, we have breakout sessions wherein we have customized games for students, and a very limited number, say 5 or 6 students will be in each breakout sessions, and they will be given different activities each group, and they come back and share their own experiences.
Yeah.
And when it is a limited group of 5 to 6 people, I think that gives them a good bonding sense.
Interesting. Very
The bonding
Really?
is there. And
I have experienced it.
Yeah. I'm wondering if from a technology standpoint, we can provide them with a place that they go, not just a meeting room place on Zoom, but maybe a permanent Zoom address for their breakout groups where they can go and work permanently, not through the classroom Zoom, but a permanent Zoom classroom for them to go and meet. I don't know. There's plenty of these of technological items and
Platforms,
apps that we just need to figure out what's the right one to, I think.
so yes,
Very
maybe,
well.
Mr. Peter, I think then we'll have to look for experiential learning on a virtual platform.
Yes.
So that is something.
Yes.
Very well said.
Yes.
So that is something which we are all looking for, because there are many students who come for counseling. So initially, as Ms. Sulekha was sharing that, they know what they were experiencing.
Yeah.
So it's whether it is stress or whether, they say, I'm zoning out, I'm blacking out, there is a lot of stress. And it's finally like you're stuck to this 14-inch screen and you're seeing all the faces here. So it's like digital exhaustion that they were feeling. So slowly when they started getting acquainted with the system, and then they felt at least we're not able to go out, but we're able to interact. And the number of hours has also increased. The interaction hours also increased. So the bonding, obviously, as all of you were saying, has increased a lot. So there are pros and cons, I'm sure. And then mostly we are looking for that experiential learning on platform.
I think that's a wonderful way. Fascinating. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think you said something very, very profound and very useful. And a lot of simulations and gamifications actually do create experiential learning. Very, very close to reality. But that's something I think that is what you said is so important, Anuradhaji. It makes so much sense. So that's a great insight.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Anuradhaji, for wonderful insights. I have a question for Dr. Shamira. Dr. Shamira, recently your college conducted a big entrepreneurship meet for the students, right? And I would like to ask, like, during these COVID times, how has COVID-19 pandemic, impacted the spirit of entrepreneurship? Do they seem excited to share? Because initially people might have felt, okay, now we are in the digital world, say for a few months, but then now it is prolonged. Do you see any change in their spirit?
Oh, very good question. Thank you. So typically as an educator, we would say that there are 6 steps, whether it is entrepreneurship educator, business educator, or marketing, as we had all the 3 in today's forum. So there are 6 steps which were required. Number 1 was, of course, the planning, which is looking at the learning outcomes. So, in our syllabus, we need to have the learning outcome, which has to be mentioned. So when the planning is done right, that's when we can ensure that students remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and then create. So that's the first step. Second step was the content itself. So how was the content created in entrepreneurship? Was it just left for students to fathom by themselves, or was it taught? So, even a partial Zoom class really helps students understand the concept instead of just putting it out as a video or as matter to read. So the content is important. Third is the platform. So in the platform, typically we had the part about the learning management system. Either we use Zoom, or as we had Blackboard, there could be Blackboard Conglomerate. So Collaborate also is a good platform which students can use. Then we come to understand the administration part. How was it executed? So if students have good experience, it always goes through the word of mouth. In the US, we also have Rate My Professor and other sites wherein students do come to know how the previous class has happened. And so then they are okay in the spirits. The only one thing which I felt in the administration part was that every week students had homework to be done. So in a face-to-face class, that wasn't the case. It was always the homework. In the entrepreneurship sense per se, we had in May was the 14th annual. So next May also will be 14th annual. So it's the spring students typically culminate their class with that summit, where they have a platform to display their businesses. So that was the 4th one. So we had the planning, we had the content, then we had the platform, then the administration. The 5th one was the analysis part. That are we able to analyze the students and see that we can grade them well, plus taking feedback at the end, that what could be the possible ways and means to improvise, because that's the last step. Improvement is the last one. So taking that feedback, even though it is not training as such in the classroom, it is teaching which is happening in the classroom. But even then, even for entrepreneurship, I would suggest that if that could be the 6 steps which can be followed, the spirit of students always can remain at an all-time high. So coming back, and for us, typically at CUNY, we have already the announcement that spring term is online. So students are already informed much in advance. So they are already prepared. That's a blessing.
That's awesome. That's really awesome to know, because it gives us an insight into how other countries are implementing their policies in universities, and how we can learn from different such setups and ecosystems.
Yes, to add to that,
Great.
Shilpa, I
Yeah.
would like to add that, let's say a country like France and Norway, they have included digital literacy, in that informational computational tools, ICT. It's about focusing and on understanding and interacting with the everyday IT tools. It's a part of the core curriculum. Similarly, in Estonia and in England, they have computer coding or programming in the primary and secondary classes. So that's something which is in different countries. I would say that there is a new app which is coming up, for maths. So that this new app is supposed to be the one wherein it is not only a tool, but students can also provide feedback, effective teachers, so that can improve a learning for sure, because it has to be inclusive, right? It has to be attractive way to reach more people. Right, that's the basic aim for all of us. So with that in mind, and typically in Europe, there is a organization called RAND Europe, which is actually currently evaluating all the primary school teachers about the digital app and their immediate feedback or delayed feedback, on for the pupils or who are doing maths. So maths is a subject, which has to be explained. And in this COVID times, I feel that, if it is an online class, it is very difficult for the student to understand pre-calculus or advanced calculus, leave alone a normal quantity methods in operations class.
Yeah, true. And I would like to add to that there are very few platforms, learning platforms, wherein you will find online assistants. They're so agile in finding out what you are doing and what you are searching, that they start asking you at a very appropriate time, are you confused? Can I help you here? So when you put your question over there, it starts taking you to the exact answer or an appropriate answer. And I think those kind of assistants should be inculcated in our different platforms that universities are running, that schools are running. Those are very helpful assistants. And as you said, for mathematics and for physics, which involve formulas and something wherein a person might not even remember where it came from, but it gives the complete detail of where it came from. So those assistants are quite helpful. Yeah, Anuradha-ji, you would like to ask some more? Yeah.
Yeah. So I would like to ask Mr. Peter about, what professional skills and tools have become a must-have to remain relevant in the post-COVID times. Right. For the students and for the professors as well.
Yeah.
Very good question.
That's an outstanding question. And right now I'm actually looking at this with my students. Okay, I've asked them to write a 5-page term paper, 5 pages, and I wanted them to talk about their skills, not the skills that they believe, but I wanted to put them into more traditional spots, their technical skills, their interpersonal skills, right? Their diagnostic skills. And I think the skills that we have to look at are, first, when you look at the broad spectrum of students that we have to think about their technical skills. We think that our students are all technically inclined because they know how to use an app. But the reality is that they don't know how to use other technical types of systems that enable them to analyze information and look at information. So I think one of the major things that we need to build into their programs are apps that are important toward their skills. Math apps, right? Analytical apps. The second thing we need to look at is their skills and their ability to diagnose items, to look at how they analyze those diagnostics and being able to analyze a situation, right? So they define what the situation is. They need to be able to define what the situation is before they can come up with an idea of where they want to go with that situation. Right? So the skills that you really have to look at are their technical skills and their analytical skills. But I think there's something else important. When we look at their interpersonal skills, we have to be able to take their interpersonal skills and be able to get them to recognize it. And many of them do. They recognize the multicultural world we live in. But they also have to recognize that when they're talking to people like we are today on 3 different continents, right? They have to be able to recognize that it's not all about being there when you want to be there. It's it's at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night now where you are. Sometimes they have to adjust their schedule, and this is an interpersonal item that they have to say, I'm not going to be able to do it because this is in the middle of my night. No, our expectations in a global world of technology is that you're there and you're able to participate. So when you put those together, the technical skills, the diagnostic skills, and the interpersonal skills, I think that those are the ones we need to keep focusing on, but being able to focus on them in a technological way and getting students to recognize that not everybody is in your time zone is a big issue, right?
That's so very well said. Yeah. So it's more like the adaptability and agility that we are looking in students now.
Right.
Yeah, adapting to the new change, and then obviously, they have to know a few things and then adapt to new things. Yeah. So Sulekha ji, would you like to say something about it?
Yeah, beautiful points made that interpersonal skills, diagnostic skills, tactical skills, and analyzing skills. And I think you very well said that we need to define the situation before doing something about it.
Yeah.
That, easier said than done. I think that is the part wherein everybody needs to focus, especially when it comes to youth.
Yeah.
Particularly up to the age of 25.
Oh, yeah.
I personally think so. Particularly up to the age of 25. Whenever we ask them, what is it that you want to do in life? Most of them will not come with clear answers. They'll say, I like it. Or I see, this is the problem. I want to do something about this. But what they are not clear is it in their own influence or it is out of influence? Can they definitely do something about it or they cannot do something about it? That clarity they first need to gain before they define that situation for themselves. Yeah, well, thank you so much. And I feel we had a very fruitful discussion. Dr. Shamira would like to add to it, yeah?
Yeah, so looking at adding on the skills like technical skills and strategic and rational analyzing skills and communication skills, I would say that soft skills also are something which are important. And just to put for that EI competency ladder, we're starting from assertive communication, stress management, flexibility, adaptability, anger management, optimistic behavior, stress tolerance. All of that plays again another role by itself after COVID-19 times, for sure.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Emotional intelligence skills definitely do play a big role here. And it involves all these components, isn't it? It involves emotional intelligence, involves all the components, yeah. So we would like to conclude with your permission. Is it okay? Shall we conclude this meeting?
Sounds
It's
good.
been wonderful to speak to all of you. With your permission, I would like to conclude that we discussed various areas concerning organizations, individuals, entrepreneurs, students, almost every facet which is impacting people in COVID times. And having the insights, I would like to take few lines from Dr. Ashis Sen. He says, learning and development helps you as if you are walking in the dark. Try walking a few steps, you might not be able to. But if you have learned and you are continually learning, it will definitely help you to walk a few steps. Uh, that is how I look at it, and it's been inspiring.
Wow.
Thank you so much, everyone. Dr. Shamira, Dr. Peter, Dr. Sahana, who joined us, and we had been anticipating Dr. Snipes. Our regards to him, and thank you, Dr. Ashis Sen. Thank you, Anuradha, for this wonderful, wonderful session. We hope our viewers will have a lot of value addition from this session.